Tim Minear, co-creator of 911, stated in interviews prior to the show's transfer to ABC that there would be a discernible rise in scenes involving Eddie, Ryan Guzman, and Buck, Oliver Stark. Buck's scenes with Eddie have been relatively lighthearted, with a few notable exceptions, like Buck coming out to Eddie and Buck assisting Eddie with Christopher's, Gavin McHugh, departure in the 911 Season 7 finale. Whatever anxiety and doubt were present in the main plot, it stands in stark contrast. With Sob Stories, the eagerly anticipated return of the show after its mid-season finale, which includes what may be the most important scene between Buck and Eddie in a number of seasons, that is not the case. That's not where Sob Stories starts though. The episode opens with Maddie, Jennifer Love Hewitt, taking an odd call from someone claiming to be John. At first glance, it appears to be a distress call involving the threat of self-harm, but it turns out to be a kidnapping case with a malevolent person playing with Maddie. Telling John the police aren't pursuing him was Maddie's second mistake. Somehow, John is keeping an eye on things, reprimanding Maddie and cutting off contact when Athena, Angela Bassett, and other police arrive at a fictitious address. I understand that Maddie must fail John's test of honesty in order to set up her kidnapping later in the episode, but I don't think Josh, Brian Safi, who is in the opening scene, or even Maddie herself wouldn't know better than to make such a tenuous promise in a situation with so much on the line. Timeless and suits alum Abigail Spencer's character, Detective Amber Brayburn, is introduced to Maddie by Athena as a result of the odd call. I'll just say it, if a well-known guest star is unexpectedly introduced and plays a big part in the plot, you shouldn't usually trust them. A few hints of an impending twist can be seen when watching the opening scene with Brayburn. According to Athena, the famous detective who specializes in missing persons was asked to assist with the case. When Brayburn sees how much research Maddie has already done, she also appears briefly anxious. This is a surprising change because Maddie generally seems to be sympathetic to Richard despite the fact that he is threatening her daughter. She seems understanding even as she urges him to kill himself with the gun he owns, claiming it's the only way to prevent his evil side from hurting an innocent person. Josh remains silent about this. In fact, Sue, Deborah Christopherson, tells her that she made the right decision. At least for Maddie, however, the implication is obvious. She may have consciously chosen to assist in the murder of the individual who had threatened her daughter. Eddie's statement that he must sublease his apartment before he can move presents him with an opportunity. That is, Buck sees a chance to mess with Eddie's plans to move. Buck offers to assist his friend in closing the deal, but instead he enumerates all of Eddie's apartment's issues, both small and large, to prospective tenants. As soon as Eddie understands what Buck is attempting to do, he politely and unremarkingly requests that Buck leave. Buck does as he is told. However, before he can leave, he hears Eddie say the following in his kitchen when he is asked why he is selling the apartment. It must be difficult to hear. There must be. Particularly considering that 911 has already spent an episode discussing how the 118 would not be nearly as close and would soon drift apart if it weren't for their work. With his abandonment issues, Buck found the idea especially difficult. Eddie's response is entirely justified in my opinion. He doesn't want to give a complex, emotional story to strangers who might be less inclined to accept the apartment. It's best to tell a clear, straightforward story with assurance and a smile. Buck doesn't see it that way, of course. After a few scenes, Buck has already found a new best friend. The episode's only 118 related emergency is the adoption of Blaze, a puppy he saves from a burning animal rescue. While playing with Blaze at the station and arguing passive-aggressively with Eddie, Buck unintentionally reveals that Eddie intends to leave Los Angeles, despite his pledge to keep the information confidential until Eddie is ready to share it. In the penultimate scene of the episode, Buck arrives at Eddie's house. After having to return the puppy to its rightful owners, he came to understand Eddie's point of view, and he apologizes, admitting that he had secretly agreed to be his subletter. All Eddie wants to do is go back to his family, Buck says of Blaze. Both parties appear to have forgiven each other, and the 118 go out for drinks in Eddie's honor. It was Eddie who calmly told Buck that, "There's nobody in this world I trust with my son more than you," after Christopher got lost during a tsunami. Even though he was almost killed by a sniper, he is once more reassuring Buck and explaining that he has amended his will to name Buck as Christopher's legal guardian in the event of a disaster. In Buck's anxious coming-out scene, he responds with cool assurance. The conclusion of Sob Stories involves Detective Brayburn kidnapping the pregnant Maddie, so Buck's backslide may have to wait for an episode or two. After being attacked in her kitchen and witnessing Brayburn's face looming over hers, Maddie passes out. Although it's a cool reveal that sets up Voices, the episode that airs next week, it's also a bit of a letdown because Maddie's story is what the mid-season spends the majority of its time building towards. As long as they strive to control their impulses, it directly addresses the question of whether those who have the tendency to commit evil deeds should be treated with some kindness. It's a sensitive and challenging question, and the answer varies based on the particular situation and even the day. The question is also very valuable to investigate in a procedural. Intriguing complexities and subtleties will probably be diluted next week as 911 focuses primarily on Maddie's rescue and the specifics of Brayburn's crimes. At the very least, Sob Stories is a show that approaches something dark and captivating. Even though it puts Hewitt's character in danger once more, it gives her a chance to shine.